everyone, I'm Brittany King and this is Sewing a Bridal Gown Part 4. So last time we created the underlayer of the dress, which was the bodice and the miniskirt, and today we are going to start on this long lace skirt that goes over top as an overlay. It's got a nice train. So here I'm taking my pattern piece and I'm starting to cut out on the beautiful lace. So now this lace was pretty tricky. Now you can't really tell from here, but the motif sort of goes on an angle. So whichever way, going to the opposite side of the garment, it wasn't going to line up perfectly. I couldn't get it to match. Plus it also lessens in density as it goes to the other side. So I will have to fill in some gaps probably. There's one spot like right at the train that I'll have to fill in with some extra flowers from the remaining of the fabric. But you want to just make sure that your seams will look the way you want it to look as best you can by lining them up. And right here I'm doing just that with the slit seam that we're going to have in the front side here. And it's about 7 inches long or so I've made it. So I'm just matching those together and starting to pin on the right sides, just wrong side to wrong side actually, because we are going to do some French seams next, which you start with doing wrong sides together, just like that, how I've pinned. I'm now gonna sew. This lace is really good to use with a French seam. It's pretty much the only way I'd recommend to do this kind of lace. It wasn't really going to work doing a seamless method like I've done before because there's a lot of space, there's a lot of netting in between the flower patterns there. So you want to start with a regular stitch, about 1/4 inch less of a seam allowance. So if you're going 1 inch for your seam allowance, you're going to sew your seam at 3/4 inch. And then you're going to cut it down here. I'm trimming it down to around 1/8, just close as you feel comfortable. Less, you kind of lose some integrity in the seam. So you'll take that using the tip of your iron to iron it open. That very, very slender seam can be tricky. Watch your fingers as well. And then you're going to flip that around and just kind of use your fingers to go along that stitch line and get it nice and straight. And now this is all done on the wrong side to wrong side instead of right side to right side. Only now you're sewing it right sides together. So if you want more details on that, I can do a video later on. But that's the basic French seam. So now we have, you know, the right side facing up. We have that nice seam that works so well with sheer fabrics. So doing the same with the back, I'm going to make sure that that center back seam is going to, you know, sort of match and look like it's one cohesive piece as best as I can. So we'll do that 3/4 inch seam now all the way down the back, creating that nice train line. So just a tighter stitch, a little bit looser in tension just for the lace. It makes such a nice seam, and you don't have to go this wide with your seam. I've just left the 1 inch seam allowance I worked with for the pattern, so because we're trimming it away anyway. So yeah, we'll go all the way down the center back there. I will also do French seams for the side seams as well. Now in the last video I did baste my lining of the mini skirt to the regular skirt, so now I don't need that anymore, and we need to separate those layers so that I can do a zipper opening here and put that lace layer on top. So that is what I'm doing. I'm leaving an opening for my zipper. I measure it first and then sew a regular stitch all the way down. Taking those 2 layers, I will put them together as if they're going to be sewn and flip it through itself, so you kind of create this weird loopy thing. And then We will pin them together to get the lining to sit a bit higher. You can leave about a 1/4 inch or so, 3/8 of an inch of the lining a little bit longer, so that when you flip it to its proper side, it will rest a little bit higher, as you can see here. So you'll have like about a 1/4 inch space where the outside of the skirt will be longer than the lining, and it just makes a nice edge there. So now we are pinning our outer lace layer to our main fabric of our mini skirt, leaving the lining kind of free hanging for now, and we'll baste along the top edge of the waist there. I like to go a little bit in from my seam allowance or my seam width that it's going to be, so the basting won't show through on the other side, but it still secures it to the layer. And we'll just go along that curve for now at the back there. So this is the current stage that it's in, with all the seams French seamed, the center back done. We've got it basted to the mini skirt. I am now preparing the center back seam for the lap zipper by basting that lace to the opening and sewing that opening now together. So this is the center back seam, and we'll go all the way down to our regular stitching. So your seam is now completely closed. You're going to press that open and lay your zipper down the very center of that seam, and working from the one side of your zipper. You're going to use both of your zipper feet at this point, starting with the left one, which will baste your zipper tape to the one side of the seam allowance. Then you're gonna go and flip this guy over like so. So you get like this nice little fold. So you'll have your seam, and then you'll have like a tiny little fold, and that's gonna go right against the zipper teeth. And you can give this a pin if you're feeling like it's going to move around, because it is a very small area. And you're going to switch your zipper feet to the other side, and so right so close to that edge without going into the zipper teeth. It is pretty tricky, especially that I'm working with 2 layers here. So go nice and slow, use your pins. I did an extra step here, which was basting the other side of the zipper tape so that it closes up that seam allowance. And on the right side of the garment, instead of doing a basting stitch first and then sewing a regular stitch on top of my material, I thought it was going to be too noticeable for the nice lace. So I'm actually hand pricking my zipper together for the seam there. So it's going to create a nicer look, I think, less noticeable. You don't have a solid row of stitching there, and it just goes to the back of the zipper, so no one will see it. And you're gonna unstitch now that first basting that you did along the zipper opening, and you'll get a nice beautiful lap zipper, and that hopefully closes properly and you didn't sew into your teeth, which is good. I'm now going to sew the lining of the mini skirt to the skirt waist layer so that they're all together, and start pinning our bodice, just our main fabric layer, to our now new developed skirt with the lining and everything attached, and sew that to the waist. So now we have a full formed waist. We have funny little angles because of the angle that the bodice makes at the back, because it is open back. But we'll sew this at a regular 1/2 inch seam allowance, I believe, and go through all the layers of our skirt and bodice, going past all of our seam lines, making sure they match. It's going to be pretty thick there, so we're going to grade and clip where necessary, like the curve in the back, and give that a good little press there so that it goes up towards the bodice and it's nice and flat. So here's our final final state that we have arrived in, which is minus the lace on the bodice. I did film the straps, which you'll see, but there was already so much information in this video, so we'll save that till next time when we tackle the lace on the bodice, finishing the edges of the bodice as well, turning them under, and figuring out what to do with the edges of the hem and the slit. I'm hoping to use some of the remaining fabric to do that in a nice scalloped edge or rough lace pattern. We shall see, but thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will catch you next time. Happy sewing!